Welcome to Aviation Careers Podcast. My name is Carl Valeri, and I'll be your host today. You know, if you're thinking about changing careers in your 50s, but you're not sure you have the time, I have someone who's going to inspire you to take off on that journey towards a career that you'll love. Scott Papera is a former director and producer and an inspiration for all of us looking to launch Career 2.0. You know, before we get started, though, I want to just let you know about the scholarships guide. It's been updated. We have another super exciting update coming in there, written by Leslie Caldwell, who's helped us out in the podcast here, about how to get a scholarship. In that scholarships guide, we have over $120 million in scholarships for people with all different types of backgrounds. You can even get one for free by going to aviationcareerspodcast.com/payitforward. And if you're interested in helping other people and you want people to move forward in their career, go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/payitforward, and you can help in many different ways. Actually, a real easy way to do that, by the way, and I don't think I've mentioned this much, is if you hit the like button, all the money that we receive from the ads on this YouTube channel goes towards scholarships guides, and I think we're giving away 15 this month or something like that. So all the dollars we get from this goes towards those scholarships guides. The other thing, too, I'd like to say before we get started, a real quick thank you to everybody that's been watching on YouTube. I know we've been primarily an audio podcast, but we just passed a million views, and I really want to say thank you for watching us, because you know what you do here by actually just watching does help people move forward in their careers and their lives. And don't forget to follow us on all our other Instagram, social media, etc. But let's get started with the show today. I know you're excited to hear from somebody who started in their 50s and actually moved forward in their career and has just banging it out of the park. Now is flying an Airbus A320 with a major airline. That's Scott Papera. Hey, Scott, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Carl, thanks for having me.
This is so exciting to have you on board here. And the reason that we actually are here today is because one of our listeners reached out and said, boy, this person, Scott, he gave us an incredible inspirational talk at the flight school. It was actually at the Sling Academy out in California, and he inspired me to move forward in my career also. So I appreciate what you do, and would also love to hear more about your background. I mean, here he is, 50 years old, just getting started in aviation. Well, actually, you started really earlier, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Well, technically, my career 2.0 came in my late 40s, though I'm in my 50s now. I'm sure like most of your viewers, I was born with an airplane in my hand. I mean, I came out and I was making paper airplanes. I was building paper airplanes, balsa wood airplanes. I grew up in San Diego, right outside of the flight path of Miramar Naval Air Station at the time. So my whole life was watching F-14s flying over and A4s, and I'm dating myself. The Blue Angels would fly and do their shows literally right over my neighborhood. So that was my inspiration to want to be a pilot. And all my life, that was it. So when I was 14, my parents basically blackmailed me. Said, if you do all your chores, we'll let you do a flight lesson. So I started flying when I was 14, so I could fly a plane before I could drive a car. I got my license when I was 17. I got my multi when I was 18, and my plan was to be a Navy pilot. And I went into the ROTC program, and they said, hey, well, your one eye is 20/25, so you won't be a pilot. And I'm like, all right, I'm out. So I just sort of flew by myself and went to college and was flying through college. But at the time, I wasn't really flying enough, I felt, to be really sort of safe and proficient. If you're only flying once every 3 months, you got to do your 3 touch and goes to get down. You're not really being a proficient pilot. And I sort of let that kind of be my catalyst to to stop that dream of being a pilot. And I got into the film program. I went to Loyola Marymount University here in Los Angeles, which is a pretty good film program, and that sort of launched my career 1.0 trajectory. But in the back of my head, I always wanted to be an airline pilot.
So what made you actually finally decide? We're fast forwarding about 30 years now, aren't we? So I got, when you kind of get into a career and when it's working well for you, it's very easy to be comfortable and just to do that. And right out of college, I started as a camera guy. I was working on Friends, ER, the Drew Carey Show, NYPD Blue, and I was on the top shows that you could be. And so that was easy. That was a sort of gravy train. And then I really wanted to start directing, and I started directing commercials and corporate films and some TV. And it was very comfortable and very easy. That the problem with the film industry is that it's feast or famine.
you're not really, you don't really have a full-time job necessarily. You'll work a lot, and then the highs are highs and the lows are lows. So I did that for about, again, 26 years. And then, I fast forward to, this is the fall of 2019. I was playing volleyball under the flight path of LAX with my son, and I'm watching all these ERJs fly over, and I'm like, man, why did I not do that? I'd had a couple of career setbacks. We got projects that were funded, getting ready to shoot, didn't fell through. It's just, I was kind of getting tired of, fighting off the lows to get those highs. And I ran the numbers in my head, and I said, well, I guess I was 48 at the time, and if I just crush it now, I can get, if I get my instrument rating, my commercial, be a CFI, a year and a half, I could probably, hopefully get to either a regional feeder. I'll be a regional pilot for the rest of my life. I will never get to be a major because that is so hard to get to a major. But I'm happy. If I just fly regional jets all around the West Coast, that'd be great. So I was driving home from LAX on the phone with my wife and said, hey, honey, how about I just stop making money and then put a bunch of money into flight training and then become a flight instructor making less money than I made 30 years ago, and then, become an airline pilot and be gone half the month. And then the joke is, my wife said, be gone half the month, let's do it. But she hates that joke because it's not true. She's very, very supportive. But she said, yeah, if that's what you want to do, let's do it. And I literally, within a month, I had interviewed a bunch of flight schools around Los Angeles. I got my BFR done. I was working at a mom and pop shop out of Fullerton, and a mentor of mine who flew for a legacy carrier said, look, if you're going to do this, you got to jump in with both feet. You can't just do one lesson a day every couple of days, and then, you'll get there, but it might take 4 or 5 years. So I went to Sling Pilot Academy down in Torrance and met with them, and the owners were fantastic. I liked the vibe there. Obviously, I was one of the older students, but I felt like that was an environment that I needed to be in that would force me to just do it. And you fly every day, you get ground every day. And I did that. I got my instruments within 2 months, my commercial about a month later. Within 6 months, I had my CFI, my double I, and I was just cranking out hours and instructing a whole bunch and learned a lot. I'm flying on some of the busiest airspace and really in the country here in Southern California, and so I was very comfortable with shooting approaches and talking to center controllers, which really kind of helped me when I got to the regional level, which was about a year and a half after that.
How many hours do you think you were flying per month?
As an instructor?
Yeah.
I was flying a lot as an instructor. I was one of the, my students will tell you, I was one of the more thorough, harder instructors. And I think that, as someone who's older, it's easier and they listen to you. So people liked the fact that I was maybe 15 years older than they were, 20 years older than they were. So I was anywhere from 90 to 135 hours or so a month. It was a lot. I mean, I had black hair when I started.
No, that's a joke.
That's a joke. No, but it was great. And I would fly 5-6 days a week. And then as I got closer to my 1,500 hours, I got a CJO, a job offer from SkyWest. And so I knew I needed to get those last few hours. So I just crunched those hours out and went there with about 1,525 hours. So I was flying a lot.
Absolutely. When you said CJO, now what is a CJO again?
I'm sorry. Yeah, conditional job offer. So that's essentially when an airline gives you an offer, says, hey, we like you. It's conditioned upon whatever requirements you need, whether it's finishing your hours, passing a background check, drug screening, all those things. They don't give you an offer and say, hey, you're in there, come fly with us. They say it's conditional upon us, basically giving you that final blessing to join the airline.
Awesome. So with that conditional job offer, you went ahead and worked for the regional airline for, and can we mention the name of the airline? Did we mention the airline name?
Yeah, SkyWest.
Yeah.
I had great training at SkyWest. I mean, it was very hard. And as someone who's not a spring chicken, I'm not a 23-year-old who just got out of college and is used to that sort of environment. The 121 training was really tough for me. I got out unscathed, didn't have any problems, but it was just, I wanted to do well. I'm very much a type A personality. I'm sure, like you, most airline pilots are pretty type A.
Absolutely.
And so you want to do well, you want to succeed. And I wasn't used to not doing well. I mean, I got through all my ratings without having any failures. And I wasn't going to let my 121 training be the first. And I was paired up with a great sim partner who's a good friend of mine now. He was the youngest guy in class, and I was the oldest guy in class. And so we were quite the pair. But he was is such a naturally gifted pilot that he would come in and he would do the instructor would do one demonstration and he would just ace it every time. And all right, Scott, your turn. I come in and I would just plant the landing. I would do something wrong, like, all right, let's do it. Let's back it up. Let's do it again. So my bar was super high. And I'm in Denver. I'm away from home for 8 weeks. And I'm calling my wife. And honey, this is just, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. It is so hard. But it's because my bar was set so high for my sim partner that when I actually did my checkout, it was a piece of cake. And it's now I see flying the line how easy not easy it is, but it's the pressure of failure was kind of holding me back. And that I think is one thing that may be a little different for people who are career changing is, for me, failure wasn't an option. I couldn't fail out of my 121 training and then, all right, well, let's just do the next thing. Because I gave up a lot to get to this point. My wife sacrificed a lot to have me, to get to this point, that I kind of put a little bit of added pressure on myself to make it through. And I made it through unscathed, but still, it was a tough 8 weeks.
So that's part of the challenge of actually becoming a pilot later in life, closer to your 50s and your late 40s, is the pressure that we put on ourselves. But if you don't mind us talking about it, maybe there's what other type of challenges do you feel there would be as somebody who's older getting into aviation later in life?
Well, you've got, as you get older, you have a lot more financial pressure. I mean, I own a home, here in Southern California. I had a daughter who's at a private university. I've got a son who's going to be going, to college pretty soon. So there's the financial pressure, knowing that you have to be able to pay bills still. And if someone's going and taking out a huge loan to make this happen, so you've got loans to pay off plus other bills to pay, that's going to be a big challenge. So I think, not saying that people that are in their 20s don't have large bills to pay, but I think in your 40s and 50s, you may be used to a certain level of spending. That was one thing my wife and I had to curb. Like, we would travel a ton and say, hey, we're not going to travel for a bit. We're going to sacrifice some of that stuff so I can get through and I can make my CFI wages and then get to a regional, hopefully, and then get through the first year regional pay. And then, now that I'm at a major airline and making good FO money, it's obviously the pressure sort of off. And now I can reward her with trips. So she's going to join me on a couple of my trips next month,
Cool.
Just to lay out at the pool and do that. So that's her reward for all of her sacrifices over the years.
Absolutely. And you have to do that with your family. You have to reward them for the sacrifices, especially in this career. Now, one of the questions I get often, Scott, is, as somebody who's older, I'm not sure I can actually handle the training or the studying. What would you say to somebody like that? This is a job that everyone, a lot of people want to have. Everyone dreams of being an airline pilot, and the reality of it is, it's a hard job. I mean, it's not just you pull back, houses get smaller, you push forward, houses get bigger. Depending on if you're an Airbus or anything else, it's actually, you've got hundreds of people's lives in your hands. So I take that very, very seriously. I think all airline pilots do. I think that, it's going to be hard, and it should be hard. You shouldn't just breeze through some of your training. So if you have challenges, that means maybe you just need to study harder. I mean, I would study in the 121 training. I was, honest to God, I would go to bed. I would wake up, 8 hours later, try to get 8 hours of sleep. I would work out for a couple hours, and I would study for 15, 16 hours a day for 6 days a week. And I give myself one day off. And I got that advice that don't do it so much where your brain melts. You need to reward your brain and let it rest and have some fun with your classmates. But you got to take it seriously. And I think the people that tend to wash out or don't do as well are the ones who maybe don't have that same sort of work ethic that you really need to be an airline pilot. And I think there were actually people at my regional classes after me who were in their early 60s. So the people that were a little older in life, I think have a varied experience and have a better work ethic in some situations. None of the older people in training that I came across washed out of their training. A lot of the problems were people that were in their early 20s who said, well, I heard if you fog a mirror, you can become an airline pilot. And that really isn't the case, especially in this current environment. I think that they're really picking the best of the best. And I think anyone can get there. It just takes hard work. It isn't rocket science. And if you study hard and you really put the good faith effort in, I think really it's very achievable. Yeah, I love that you said that. It really is. It's hard work, and you can do it. You just have to work hard at it. Another question I get is from folks that are a little bit older is if they have the cognitive ability to do this, because I think we assume as we get older we won't be able to actually learn, et cetera, because we've been outside that environment of learning. So how did you do that? How did you ramp up into that whole study environment again?
The way you said it actually is perfect. It really was a ramp up for me, and it started with instrument training when I was just getting back into flying, because it was a whole new language. It's a whole new way to fly. And I think that as you start training your brain to, hey, guess what, brain, we're going to start doing some more learning here. I think that it gets easier. And I found that my memory actually really improved once I started actually studying and training. And I would do things. There's things like Lumosity is a website that you can do, and it just helps to train your brain a little bit and just kind of keep all the synapses firing. So I did Lumosity. I would do crossword puzzles, and I think just by doing it, I think your brain naturally adapts. It's a pretty powerful organ.
Yeah, it sure is. And I think that's the biggest thing is just exercising it because we haven't had that influx of studying for quite some time. Any other challenges as far as becoming a pilot later in life that we want to talk about before we move on to the rewards?
Challenges? No, I think, I think that was about it. Some people say, is it hard if you're in your 50s and you're flying with captains who are, in their 20s? Really, the first time I really felt older was I was flying with a captain at my regional who was, I think he was just maybe 23, and he'd never heard of Friends, never heard of George Clooney or Jennifer Aniston. I'm like, oh man, I'm officially old. But I sort of jokingly, I'm in a chat groups with my various classes and friends even from flight school, and they're all in their 20s and 30s, and I say, no, I'm 30. What are you talking about? I joke with them, but that really hasn't been a problem for me. I come from my industry in Hollywood. You're going to have people who are 23-year-olds who are multimillionaire, powerful people who are running the show, and it doesn't really matter. Age, I don't think matters. I'm sure you may have noticed too when you're flying, you get people who are older than you or younger than you. When you're on the flight deck, it doesn't matter. You're a team. It's all crew resource management. You're both trying to do the same thing safely, and I don't think that's ever been an issue for me. So I wouldn't let that be a hold up for anybody who's worried about being too old and having people 20 years younger than you, because it doesn't matter. It's as long as you get the job done and do it safely and do it the way that the company wants you to do it. I think that it's easy.
Yeah, I'd have to attest to that fact too, as being one that changed my career later in life. Most of the captains were younger than me. Didn't make any difference. I mean, we're all professionals in the flight deck, that's for sure.
And they don't treat you differently either. They don't say, oh, here comes a boomer. Here comes Grandpa. At least not to my face.
Right. Maybe behind
my back. Yeah, behind the back they do.
The only thing that I've seen change is your body does change as you get older. So you have to work at things a little more. You do have to maybe get up earlier, do your stretches earlier, that kind of thing. Where I think I used to be able to jump out of bed and be ready in 15 minutes. Now I think it takes an hour and a half.
and exercise too. I think I've actually in better shape now because I forced myself on overnights to hit the gym. My watch sits there and says, hey, it's time to stand up, buddy. I'm like, I can't, flying. Right. So I try to get all those steps. And I think that really kind of helps me as well. Just kind of keep my cognitive skills up.
So what do you think are the best rewards as far as flying? What are the biggest rewards?
It's a great question, and it wasn't what I expected it was going to be. I mean, really, the thing that I found very unexpected is the customer experience. And I think we all want to be pilots. We all want to be, fly jets, and we want to go to great places. And it's really exciting to see planes taking off and landing. But I really love flying. It's just like walking through the terminal, and little kids salute me for some reason, and people smile at you, and they want to talk to you because you could do something that they can't do. And of course, you're representing your company, so you want to obviously, be friendly and outgoing and represent your company well. And people on the flight, as they're walking off the plane, they thank us and say, thank you for getting us here safely. And that was great. You guys, that was top notch. And I didn't expect that to happen. And it really makes me think a lot more when I'm flying. I'm really cognizant of the people in the back of the plane. Am I leveling off too quickly? How are they comfortable? And those are all things that I really find rewarding. And to walk off the plane and smile, assuming my landing wasn't embarrassing, open the door up and take your bows. If it is a bad landing, you keep the door closed and you can debrief with the captain for a little bit. But I think it's the people. I love the people. I love that experience, and I think that was one part. And I would say it's pretty social as well, right? You're meeting new people all the time. At my airline, there's hundreds of captains that I would fly with, and I've only flown with the same person maybe once or twice. And so you meet new people and you have great conversations about things, and then maybe you don't see them anymore, and then it's the next flight. So it's very social. You've got the best, obviously, the view of any work environment. I think you can't top sunsets over the desert in the summertime and seeing all those clouds, or I had to avoid a 150-mile storm over Chicago one time at night, and it was fireworks in the sky. It's really sort of awe-inspiring. So it makes you, it humbles you a little bit too, and it just makes you think all this hard work that I put in for the previous 3-4 years has really been worth it.
So it's interesting what you said about the rewards. You get to meet all these new people. I think a lot of people don't realize that you really don't fly with the same people that often, especially the in-flight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the in-flight, at the in-flight, you tend to, they kind of come and go. Like most airlines now, you won't go on a 4-day trip. The pilots will stay together, but the in-flight crew will just go between different trips. So you won't necessarily see them. Although ironically, I see a lot of the in-flight crew a lot more than I see the same captains. You see people that in passing in terminals, and you say hi, or as you're giving them a plane, or they're giving you a plane, and you can catch up real quick. But yeah, it's very social, and it's I think that the airlines want people who are outgoing as well, because you're representing their airline. So if you're doing great announcements to the passengers, and you're smiling at the door when they come in and when they leave, I think that's what a lot of, I would say, most airlines really are looking for. Do you have a good personality? Because I used to be a recruiter when I was at SkyWest too, and that was one of the things I would look for. Do they have sort of our core values, and are they someone that I want to be stuck in a flight deck with for 4 days for 8 hours a day?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. That's one of the things I think is so incredibly different flying for the airlines, is the fact that you do interact more than you think with people. And I think that was interesting that you brought that up, because I know what the thing that I love the most about the airlines is the people. It really is. Not just the people that are the passengers, because some people think it's passengers. It's the in-flight, it's the pilots you fly with, and it's the people you meet on overnights. So what if you had to choose, what's your favorite thing, the thing you love the most about flying for the airlines?
That's kind of a loaded question. Yeah, because there's so much. Because sometimes you love just the satisfaction of a job well done. I flew you last week into JFK, and I did this thing I guess it's called the crowbar. And you're just dropping like a rock over LaGuardia, and you sort of do a 270 in. You're dropping real fast, and you get everything. You get the plane dirtied up real quick, gear down, and you have a nice landing. And the people in the back don't necessarily know that. Wow, that was a relatively challenging approach and landing, because they're looking at the view, right? But you feel like, wow, that was cool. So I like to push myself. I try to if I'm going to an airport that's new to me, and then doing a good job in getting in, I think, or the captain says, yeah, that was great. That was a hard one. Good job. I think those are the things that, at least professionally, are rewarding. I can't say there's necessarily one thing that is the most rewarding about the job, because there are so many challenges to the job, and there are also so many rewards to the job. It all just sort of comes together.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's great, is the fact that you're challenged by an approach. The only downside is that sometimes you can't share that with anybody else. They're like, oh, hey, thanks, see you later. Right. You were just doing this. You were sweating through the approach. It was raining and everything, and you greased it on, and that was it. And it's like they think it was nothing. So
you can't walk out there and go, oh my God,
no, you can't.
God, we're on the ground.
Absolutely. Which kind of leads to the fact that what you said is you're really an ambassador for the airline when you actually work there, and that's something to bring up, because that is something I've seen people actually get into a little bit of trouble with in the past, and obviously do through the counseling and the career coaching, is that online sometimes they do things that they really shouldn't. And as a recruiter at an airline, do you actually go back and look at some of their social media when you're recruiting somebody?
So when I was recruiting for my regional, I would know the names ahead of time, and I would like to do a little bit of research, because I'm not trying to just to grill them, and I want you to fail, so I'm going to dig in deep. But if I would look and I would see if something looks odd, like that either that flight time or that experience, maybe I look at their resume for sure and see if there are any holes in the resume. If things I think are a little out of whack. But I wouldn't necessarily go on stalk them on Facebook and try to find reasons. I don't really feel that, as a recruiter, wasn't really my job. My job was kind of to assess, are they good character people? Did they study for the interview? Do they know their Jeppesen plates? Are they someone who holds our company's core values at heart, as much as you can assess that on a Zoom 2-hour Zoom call? Those are the things that I would say. But I would think that there are, for sure, once you are at an airline, there are. You still have to mind your P's and Q's. If you post something that you shouldn't be posting, it does get back one way or another to the airline, and you may have a call from your chief pilot that says, hey, is this something that really represents us? Because it shows who, the airline you work for, maybe on your social media profile. People can find out who you work for. I think it does reflect poorly on the airline. Then that's something you need to be careful of for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though you may not mention it and you're involved in social media like I am, I never mention the company I work for, and it's clunky if I do, right? But in general, though, I make sure that I put forth a good image, and I'm not doing things that would embarrass a company or me, obviously.
100%.
But we need to have you back on just to talk about recruiting, since
Sure.
I forgot you were a recruiter with SkyWest. Get some advice as far as getting ready for an airline interview. That could be a whole nother episode.
Anytime.
But Scott, before we go, there's one thing I really want to talk about that concerns a lot of people your age, and you touched on it in the beginning, is, can I make a living flying if I change careers late in life?
100% you can. I think that there is a bit of a fallacy or a misconception maybe that people say, there's a huge pilot shortage. Pilots make tons of money. You can fog and mirrors. I was saying, you can make a lot of money, and there's lots of ways to do that. I think my biggest suggestion for people who are going to change careers is to live within your means. So again, I went from making money to putting in money to making little money to then now making money again. So that was a big financial hit for a good couple of years there. So I think you need to have a really supportive partner. So if you have a spouse who is supportive of what's happening and knows there's lots of sacrifices that are going to be made, not only financially but it may constrict what you can maybe do socially, or maybe we can't go on that trip over the summer. Maybe we should just eat in tonight instead of going out every night. There are a lot of sacrifices, but now that I've made it, and also by the way, when you make these jumps, so when you go from a regional to a major, you can be making good money. There are people making great money as captains at regionals, and they say, look, I've got good quality of life. I don't necessarily need to make $500,000 a year flying wide body aircraft. So I love my regional. I want to fly airplanes and be home, and have a good schedule. For me, that's I want to have a good schedule. I don't know that I actually would ever try to jump to the left seat and become a captain. I think that in my limited time left, I want to be able to get to the point where I've got a good schedule. But when you go to a new airline, you're going to go back to that 1 year, that first officer pay. So which can be 50% of what you make maybe in year 2 or year 3. So I say living within your means is the big thing. But once you get into it, there's lots of ways to make money. It depends on the airline. Some airlines, if you're on reserve, will let you pick up trips that are in an open time. So you have your guaranteed reserve hours, and then, hey, I'm not working the next 3 days. There's a trip in open time. That's going to pay me $800 a day for 3 days. I'll pick that up. And so there are ways to make a little money. It depends on the airline, obviously, but to make money above and beyond just what your minimum guarantee is.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we're going to do a whole episode on that, how to make extra money as an airline pilot, how you can make really good money. Maybe we should have you back on for that too, Scott. It's Scott,
have a podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Scott, this has been awesome, man. I tell you, it's you really are an inspiration for others. And
well,
again, one of the reasons we brought you on is because of the fact that you did a presentation at Sling Pilot Academy. And as people know, I hang out there a lot when I'm over in California and just kind of hang out and talk to people. They've been very welcoming to me. I hang out in Torrance, and that it's really cool. The people there, they've been wonderful. And I think one of the things as far as moving forward in your career later in life is the fact that it's probably a good idea to get going as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, should I do the programs that are accelerated or not? And I'd say absolutely you should. I think I think we talked about that earlier, but I think you recommend it.
100%. I think that, I would say two things. One, I can't underestimate the value of having a mentor and someone who can sit there and sort of guide you through that process. So I think like someone like you is helped me out immensely. I had a couple of mentors that really helped guide me through, and am I doing this right? And just checking on those guideposts. Are you get guideposts? Are you getting to where you need to be? Are you pushing yourself? But then for me, I needed to have that full time. I needed to get in there as quickly as I could. So for me, the accelerated program, it worked great. Again, if you have to put the work in, they're not just going to say, hey, here's your CFI, and 6 months later, you really got to put the work into it. But I was motivated, and I had, the sooner I could get through this, the sooner I would be making money again, and the sooner my wife could quit her full-time job and get back to doing what she loves to do. And that was why the accelerated program for me was very, very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, and you're a great testament to that as far as how to work an accelerated program. And again, we'll talk more on that in another episode. Definitely have you back on again. But
sure.
Scott, this has been awesome. I tell you, you've inspired me to talk more about certain items, even through our discussion. And I would love to have you back on just to talk about some of those topics that we talked about. And
Absolutely.
and we'd like to hear more about your journey in the future and see where it heads. But as someone that changed careers late in life, in the late 40s, early 50s, I think you really are somebody who's very positive, obviously through all your smiling, and somebody who's a great example to those that are thinking of changing careers. If you have questions, by the way, first, Scott, please go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/contact, either feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. We'll send them over to Scott and maybe have him back on to answer some of those questions, because normally we do get most of our questions about people changing careers late in life. Again, Scott, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thank you, Carl. Appreciate it.
If you're someone who's actually looking at changing careers, and like Scott talked about, having a mentorship, we do that here through our career coaching. And by the way, we're just starting a new thing. We're doing some coaching, group coaching, which is going to be a lot more affordable. It's only $20 a month. And basically, it's almost like a mastermind group, but it's not. We basically have someone that comes on and gives a inspirational story, and then we have a topic, and then afterwards it's questions and answers for you. So look for that on the website. It's going to be in our courses page. It's not up there yet. And if you want to come by and see us and check out, the banner that we have and get your picture taken so we can put it on Instagram, I'd love to see you. We have a booth this year. It's booth A41 in Hangar A at Sun and Fun. And you can find out more at flysnf.org and find out more about the actual show and the 50th anniversary that they're going to have for Sun and Fun. We're really excited to be a big part of that. And don't forget, you can listen to the show all year long at Sun and Fun Radio. We're big supporters there. But the most importantly, before you go away and before you stop listening or watching this, think about something that you can do today or tomorrow to help your career, to help you move forward in your career. It could be something really small. It could be just sending us an email and asking us a question. It could be actually watching the next episode of this. Or it could be just thinking about in your mind what it is you want to do as a pilot in the future. It could be something small, something big. But most importantly, do something for me. Take one step today to move forward in your career, and I know that you will make it to your career goal shorter than you think. Well, folks, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next episode.